Good evening. The December 13th, 2022 regular meeting of the Mentor Exempted Village Board of Education is called to order. This meeting is being held in accordance with Section 3313.15 of the Ohio Revised Code. Mr. Wade, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Briner.
Here.
Ms. Cook.
Here.
Ms. Jessling.
Present.
Ms. Payne.
Here.
Mr. Tuttle. Marked absent.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade, before we move on to the approval of minutes, I would like to mention that there was a spelling error on page 20 of the November 8th, 2022 regular meeting minutes. We have corrected the error and the revised minutes have been uploaded to board docs. Also, before we jump into the meeting itself, a couple of things that had come up last meeting that we wanted to make sure that we addressed. Based on some of our new public participation policies. There was a Neola contract concern from last meeting. We did share in our board work session in November that we obtained the summary of the lawsuit that involved the Neola policy. The issue involved how the board members in the district named in the lawsuit were enforcing their public participation policy. It was not a problem with the policy itself. The one piece we will be doing to ensure our public participation policy is solid is to possibly eliminate the words inflammatory, aggressive, and reasonable decorum in the policy that we passed in November. I'm going to have an update ready to go for that in January once we get the final language determined, but those are some things coming out of that shift that we've already made. That doesn't impact anything that we'll have with the procedures of the public participation policy, but just a couple of things just to make that language a little bit stronger for us. Second piece was the Crossroads counselors and getting parent permission and when that happens. Anytime a student is recommended to our Crossroads counselors, parent permission is required for them to speak with them. So the parents do have the right to refuse those services for their student if they so desire. And finally, just a DEI committee update. Our internal committee met again last week and we reviewed some additional data and we're continuing to develop some action steps. We'll be meeting again in January to compare some of those action steps that we've been talking about to some of the goals and action steps that we currently have in our strategic plan. Our state one plan document, which is the one that we use for federal grant funding, and then also looking at our district and school improvement plans just to make sure that everything aligns with those action steps that we're potentially considering for our DEI work this year. At this point, we'll identify outside experts necessary to meet the needs of the students in our district once we get some of those action steps identified. So hopefully we'll have some updates again in January for the group.
I would like to welcome everyone to the December 13th, 2022 regular meeting of the Mentor Exempted Village Board of Education. Prior to this evening, each board member has received for their review and consideration the agenda and materials associated with each agenda item for the board's approval via the district's paperless Board of Education agenda system, Board Docs. The public can access the agenda through the school district's website. The agenda is available through the district's website for public viewing the Sunday prior to the board meeting. Board members have the opportunity to call the superintendent and chief financial officer for information concerning agenda items and to request, if needed, additional information. There are two places on the agenda when the board entertains comments from the community. The first hearing of the public is dedicated to those who wish to address the board on agenda items only. The second hearing of the public is dedicated to those who wish to address the board on any subject, whether it is on an item on the agenda or another issue. When addressing the board, please state your name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please address questions to the president. This meeting is being televised on a delayed basis and will be shown on Spectrum Cable Channel 1026 in Mentor and Channel 1025 in Mentor on the Lake. This meeting is also being videotaped and will be shown on our YouTube channel, Cardinal TV, Mentor, Ohio. Please place your mobile telephones on silent mode during the meeting. Also want to advise the board continues to welcome feedback from our community as an important component to conducting business. This includes here at our regularly scheduled meetings, during our 2 hearings of the public segments, and via other communication channels such as email and phone calls. Recently, we unanimously voted to update our policy in regard to hearing of the public at meetings, and it is our hope the updated policy will help ensure meetings are efficient and productive. 2 changes you should be aware of. The board limits public participation to residents of the school district, parents or guardians of a student in the district, employees in the district, individuals with a business ownership in the district, or elected, appointed public officials whose jurisdiction includes the school district. Also, those who would like to participate in the hearing of the public section of the regular board meeting must sign up prior to the start of the meeting. Sign up was available online and paper here prior to 7 o'clock. We will invite you to the microphone when it is your turn to speak. As a reminder, there are components of the policy that have not changed. The first opportunity to speak is on agenda items only, and then there is the second opportunity to speak on any topic later in the meeting. Each person may only speak once per segment, and comments are limited to 3 minutes. The purpose of hearing of the public is for our community members to address the board. We must insist you direct your comments to the board and not to other audience members. It is equally important that everyone has a chance to speak uninterrupted. So please do not call out or interrupt when someone else has the floor. While we may not all agree on various topics, let's demonstrate how to be respectful of one another during our school board meetings. As the board president, it is my job to enforce the rules of the meeting so that the board can conduct its business. We kindly ask everyone to respect the expectations of this evening's meeting. The hearing of the public portion of our meetings is information gathering for the board and administration so we can work to best serve our community. If at the end of the public participation we do not make a statement, please note this is in no way demonstrates a lack of care for comments shared by our community. Rather, we want to be thoughtful in our approach, and we will provide a response in a timely manner when appropriate. Thank you. And moving on, next item is district highlights and recognitions. Do we have any tonight? Nothing. All right, moving on to approval of minutes. We have the November 8th regular board meeting and November 16th special board meeting.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Okay, please call the roll.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Jessling?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Briner?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
And for hearing of the public on agenda items only, do we have any of those?
We do not have any for agenda items only.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to superintendent's report and recommendations. Mr. Heath.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade. I have the following recommendations listed under the consent agenda, and I'm recommending approval of items 6A1 through 6A3.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
I was looking at my notes. Who motioned? Sorry. Who seconded? Ms. Payne? Ms. Jessling?
Yes.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Briner?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade, I'm recommending approval of the resolution providing for employment of legal counsel for the Board of Education.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Jessling?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Briner?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade, I'm recommending approval of the agreement between Wellness IQ and Mentor Public Schools.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Jessling?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Briner?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade, I'm recommending approval of the agreement between Lake Tech 360 and Mentor Public Schools.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Jessling?
Yes.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Briner?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade, I'm recommending approval of the resolution to approve board member expense reimbursement. I will call these out separately as each board member requesting reimbursement will abstain from voting on their own resolution. First resolution to approve reimbursement for Mary Briner.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Jessling?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Resolution to approve reimbursement for Maggie Cook.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Jessling?
Yes.
Ms. Briner?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Resolution to approve reimbursement for Annie Payne.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Jessling?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Briner?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
And resolution to approve reimbursement for Thomas Tuttle.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Jessling?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Briner?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Wade, I'm recommending approval of agenda item C1 related to certified personnel and C2 through C4, all related to human resource matters. I'm also recommending approval of agenda item D related to administrative staff resignations and agenda item E related to administrative staff appointments.
Mr. Heath, I think we can vote on C and D together, but we need to do E on its own.
So we'll make the recommendation for C1, C2 through C4, and agenda item D as a starting point.
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Jessling?
Yes.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Briner?
Yes.
Motion's carry 4-0.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Wade, I'm recommending approval of agenda item E related to administrative staff appointments.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Jessling?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Briner?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
This concludes my portion of tonight's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Board of Education report and recommendations, business. You got that.
Yeah. Madam President, members of the board, asking for approval for the January 10th, 2023 board meeting, 6:30 organizational meeting in Paradigm, a 6:45 tax budget meeting in Paradigm, and a 7 o'clock regular meeting in Paradigm.
So
So
moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Jessling?
Yes.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Briner?
Yes.
Motion's carry 4-0. Madam President, members of the board, asking for the appointment of a President Pro Tem for the January 10th, 2023 organizational meeting.
I nominate Tom Tuttle.
Any other nominations? Not hearing any. Do I get a motion? To second that, I guess, at this point?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Jessling?
Yes.
Ms. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Briner?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle has been appointed the President Pro Tem for the January 10th, 2023 meeting.
Thank you. Okay. Legislative report. Mr. Tuttle asked me to give his report. Bear with me. Education Reform Bill moves during lame duck. Senate Bill 178 was introduced by Senator Bill Reinke, apologize, from Tiffin, in May of 2021 and contained the following one sentence in the bill text: "It is the intent of the General Assembly to enact legislation to reform the functions and responsibilities of the State Board of Education, the Superintendent of Public Instruction, and the Department of Education." Since the introduction of SB 178, the bill has not received any legislative action until lame duck, when the bill received not only its first hearing, but a substitute bill was accepted that outlined the reform details, which include the following: create a Department of Education and Workforce with a cabinet-level director appointed by the governor and approved by the Senate. Divide the agency into two divisions: the Division of Primary and Secondary Education, which would also include preschool, and the Division of Career Tech Education. Authorize the new department to be responsible for the rulemaking process and the enforcement of current rules, and maintain the current structure of the State Board of Education, but limit its duties to teacher licensure, educator, or staff conduct, and territory transfer decisions. The Ohio Senate passed the bill by a 22-7 vote, and the bill now heads to the Ohio House. Governor Mike DeWine has also weighed in on the bill, encouraging Speaker Cupp and the Ohio House to pass the bill. In what may be the last week of lame duck, the House Primary and Secondary Education Committee has scheduled 2 hearings and a potential vote on SB 178. Other bills to watch during lame duck. The following bills have received significant legislative action during lame duck and could potentially be enacted by the close of the 134th General Assembly. However, lame duck is a time where anything can happen, and bills that have not received action so far in lame duck may suddenly move. So we've got House Bill 554, which would require State Board of Ed to issue 2-year temporary educator licenses to applicants with expired professional teacher certificates and professional educator licenses, as long as certain requirements are met. Also, this bill could potentially be used as an education omnibus bill. House Bill 151, which would revise the Ohio Resident Educator Program to allow mentoring to occur online or in person and prohibit State Board of Ed from limiting the number of attempts participants have to successfully complete the resident educator summative assessment. The bill also requires districts to provide 1 day of professional development leave for classroom teachers each year to observe a veteran teacher. Additionally, the bill includes provisions of HB 61, which would enact the Save Women's Sports Act to require schools to designate separate single-sex teams and sports for each sex. Note, this bill could potentially be used as an education omnibus bill. HB 294/HB 458, which would make changes to election law and absentee voting, including the removal of the August special election. Please note that the 2 bills contain the same language. HB 458 is in Senate and HB 294 is in the House. House Bill 105, which would require public schools to provide age-appropriate instruction in child sexual abuse and sexual violence prevention, and require in-service staff training in child sexual abuse prevention. There's a couple things that were recently introduced in legislation. HB 742, introduced by Rep. P. Scott Lips, Republican from Franklin, to require data collection, reporting, and outreach regarding applied behavior analysis for children with autism who are Medicaid enrollees. House Bill 745, introduced by Reps. Jeff LaRae, Republican from Violet Township, and Adam C. Byrd from New Richmond, to require an initial or renewal educator license applicant to include the applicant's school district or school of employment, require an educator license holder to notify ODE annually of any changes in the district of employment, and require ODE to notify an educator's district of employment within 90 days of the educator becoming the subject of a consent agreement of disciplinary action. HB 748, introduced by Rep. Byrd, to require school districts, community schools, and STEM schools to adopt a policy regarding professional coworker relationships and the performance of staff member duties, require the policy to prohibit each professional staff member from engaging in political, partisan, ideological, or religious advocacy by compelling a student to adopt, affirm, or adhere to a specific belief, and unfairly evaluating a student's work because it does not reflect a specific political, partisan, ideological, or religious belief. And finally, SB 368, introduced by Senate Sandra O'Brien, Republican from Ashtabula, to expand eligibility for EdChoice scholarships to all students, beginning with scholarships sought for the 23-24 school year. It would increase the homeschool expense tax credit from $250 to $2,000. Any questions, comments? Thank you. All right, moving on. Student Achievement Report, Mrs. Cook.
Thank you. I have a lot to talk about again because December is such a busy month for us. One of the things that we all got to witness in November, students and educators from our Mentor Fire EMT Academy and the Cardinal Works program had the opportunity to participate in the annual Student Achievement Fair at the Ohio School Board Association Capitol Conference. And this draws thousands of school board members and administrators together each year for idea sharing. Being selected to participate in the Student Achievement Fair is a big honor, and the students were excellent representatives of Mentor schools as they shared what they were learning in class. The EMT students gave demonstrations of the skills that they are working on and even helped people refresh their CPR skills. Students from Cardinal Works drew people in with their farm-to-school concept, explaining how they use hydroponics to grow healthy food items that are being used in our cafeteria. The students loved getting to share their knowledge, and we were impressed with their confidence and their speaking abilities. It was really nice to see our students there. Our district strategic plan states that we will actively encourage strong community partnerships, and this month I'm going to be highlighting multiple community partnerships that our students and schools are participating in. This will be a focus on our elementary schools in particular, and our students are really fortunate. As I was looking over all of the things that are happening this month in our schools, just how fortunate we are that the community supports the Mentor Public Schools in these many ways. On December 22nd, our high school boys and our girls wrestling team will host right here a Pin for a Purpose at the Fine Arts Center. Starting at 5 o'clock, you can come. It's a fundraising event for people living with cancer. I'm definitely going to be there. I think it'll be really exciting. And our Mentor High School teams will also be going to Shore to participate in an all-school assembly to raise awareness for this. And I understand at this assembly that the staff and students will have the opportunity to participate. So I'm sure that will be a fun assembly. During the months of November and December, the students at Orchard Hollow have been focused on the character trait of caring. Orchard Hollow Student Council organized a food drive to benefit St. Bede's Food Pantry, and the generous school community donated an entire carload of donations. Students at Orchard Hollow also worked with their Paws Buddies to write thank you letters to our local veterans, and I understand that the veteran recipients were very excited and grateful to hear from our students. Student Council will also be sponsoring 12 Days of Kindness during this period up until our break. At Ridge Elementary, they've been focusing on the core value of gratitude throughout November and December, and the Ridge Student Council also held a food drive. They collected 1,226 pounds of food, which was a fair market value of $2,194.54. The Ridge Student Leadership Group is promoting the Reindeer Program, and right now they have 97 volunteers that are providing gifts to 36 families, which is supporting a total of 97 children. On December 9th, our Ridge students participated in a PTA Helping Hands service project, and the buddy classrooms learned about gratitude through creating cards for other people. At Lake Elementary, this season has been a time of giving and family and community involvement as well. Lake staff, community business partners, and local police worked together to provide holiday assistance to approximately 40 families. The Lake Elementary students are holding their annual shoe and sock drive with the partnership of Victory Lane Assembly of God and Jennifer and Company. And Lake Elementary is promoting 12 Days of Kindness leading up into the holiday break as well, with daily dress themes and daily acts and discussions of kindness. On November 14th, the Mentor Rotary presented and delivered dictionaries to our third graders at Bellflower. In addition to the gift of dictionaries, the students were introduced to the structure of a dictionary and using guide words and other dictionary features. At Bellflower, our first grade students had a visit from the Mentor Fire Department on November 21st. Roland Patchinger, our education liaison from the Mentor Fire Department, presented fire safety information to the first graders. And they learned about practicing emergency plans at home, when to call 911, stop, drop, and roll, and all of those very important information pieces. The students were also able to see our firefighters in full gear, so they wouldn't be afraid in an emergency. Our PTAs have been very busy. This is a very busy time for our PTAs, and all of the parents that step forward to raise money for all of these fun events and to give of their time volunteering. And the Bellflower PTA coordinated a Mix It Up lunch, and this encouraged students to talk to new people. As the students came into the lunchroom, the volunteers would hand out little like squishy balls to them of different colors. And then when they went into the lunchroom, there were balloons with coordinating colors on the tables. And so the students were then kind of assigned where to sit. So they were, in essence, meeting new people and not sitting with their normal group. Bellflower also recently hosted a Santa shop, and students selected gifts ranging from 50 cents to $7.50 for their families. Every child received $1 from the PTA so that everyone would be able to spend some money, and proceeds from the shopping benefited Toys for Tots. Bellflower is also hosting 12 days of winter spirit for the 12 days prior to winter break, and staff and students are encouraged to participate daily for a small donation, and all of the donations will go to United Way. And if you were donating any warm items, that would be donated to Coats for Cards through the Student Council. At Memorial Middle School, the students are partnering with the Salvation Army. They sponsored 8 children for the holidays. Memorial Student Council spearheaded the initiative to purchase wish items, including clothes, books, toys, and even bikes. Hopkins Student Council created a giving tree for Project Hope. New items can be donated December 1st through the 19th for Project Hope, which is a homeless shelter in Painesville. Needed items include hats, mittens, scarves, socks, and underwear. And on December 9th, our Hopkins first graders had the opportunity to meet with the Mentor Fire Department for that same fire safety presentation. Hopkins has been using a Choose to Be Nice theme for teamwork, and student kindness ambassadors are selected through an application process at the beginning of the school year. The students that are selected have designated classrooms, and they go in and do presentations on kindness throughout the year. So Ms. Elam, their first grade teacher, coordinates with the ambassadors to review and practice their presentations. And at Hopkins, the Soaring Card student group presented Reader's Theater during the Cardinal Connection assemblies. In addition to the charity collections, as a part of the holiday season, our schools have and will welcome families to many programs and concerts. Sterling Morton recently had a concert with over 100 students and parents participating. I'm sorry, that wasn't a concert, that was a paint night on December 2nd. I'm jumping ahead because on December 6th, they had their holiday concert. And last night on December 12th, the 5th grade students performed their holiday concert. I understand that the gym was packed for all 3 events, and Morton is really happy to welcome families back into the building. Fairfax was very proud to showcase their children's choir. They sang at the Mentor tree lighting, and I know some of us got to see Fairfax Children's Choir sing. They did a wonderful job. They have been celebrating the holidays with December to Remember School-Wide Spirit Month with the PTA-sponsored holiday shop, a school-wide sing-along, and class parties prior to break. Orchard Hollow students in the small group unit classrooms participated in the Rotarians Holiday Party at Lake Farm Park. Students have also been practicing holiday songs during music therapy, and I got to see a clip of that today. They had a really nice rhythm going on with these little instruments that they would hit that would follow along. It was really fun. And we'll try to share that. Tonight at 7 p.m., Orchard Hollow kindergarten students are holding their traditional holiday musical performance with Mrs. Blue. And our Orchard Hollow students are enjoying the annual Santa Shop this week, sponsored by the Orchard Hollow PTA. Class parties will also take place the last day before break, so everyone's excited for those parties on the 21st, I'm sure. It's always fun to come into your children's class with all the little gifts and games and things to do. The Ridge students recently participated in the Ridge Pixie Shop, and they'll hold a school-wide sing-along at the end of the semester here before winter break. At Lake Elementary, the Santa Shop will be put on by the PTA, and Student Council is sponsoring the annual Pizza with Santa event. The fifth graders at Lake performed a concert for their parents, and every student attended. That's pretty amazing. The fourth graders will also perform a holiday show as well. And Bellflower students enjoyed the PTA Deck the Halls event for families on Friday, December 9th. There was a wide range of activities for the whole family. Our high school top 25 did perform in the show, and they caroled. And families worked together to create cards, crafts, they played games, and Santa and Mrs. Claus were in attendance. Ms. Lowe will lead an all-school holiday sing-along before winter break with songs that they have learned. The Hopkins PTA has also organized a Santa Shop this week, and the PTA has provided thousands of items for students to choose from. Hopkins music teacher, Mrs. Joshling, is leading the third grade holiday concert for Hopkins tonight at Memorial at 7 p.m. I saw some of them heading into Memorial tonight as I was leaving the Shore Memorial basketball game. In addition, Hopkins students have theme days this week, and they'll enjoy a concert from high school music groups right here at the Fine Arts Center, and classroom parties will also occur. Our Memorial students and our Shore students have both been decorating their lockers for the holidays. They've had different events where they're watching holiday movies and having hot chocolate. Shore students had a Deck the Halls night sponsored by Pep Club, and they had a really nice turnout. So a big thank you to everyone that helped make that happen. We had a lot of volunteers to bring those special events in, and I know there'll be a lot of volunteers in and out of the buildings up until the end here with these Christmas parties. This really allows our teachers to focus on academics and not be planning a party, and then the students can still enjoy themselves with festive opportunities. I do have a last-minute add-on here. Mrs. Jessling shared with me. She had news before me on this one, but the 2023 National Art Honor Society juried exhibition selected 127 works recently from 2,410 submissions. So I understand this is nationwide, is that true? So out of 2,410 submissions, 127 are selected. And Mentor Public Schools is very proud that we had 4 pieces selected from Mentor High School. So just a real testament to our teachers from the K-12 arts program to be able to prepare our students to have 4 selected in such a selective process. As congratulations to our students, we have Caitlin Wong, Cecilia Jork, Maria Domick, and my own daughter, Hallie Cook. Congratulations. All set, thank you.
All right, moving on to Chief Financial Officer's report and recommendations. Mr. Wade.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Here's our monthly update. We are trending in a favorable pattern. We're collecting about $220,000 more than we expected in our forecast, and we're underspending by about $240,000. So it puts us almost $500,000 better than we were projecting. And bottom line is we're operating at a deficit of $17.2 million, which is about $1.5 million better than we were projecting going back to our September when we did our final appropriations. Revenue is up here mainly because about $473,000 this time last year comparison, because our investments are collecting at a higher interest rate, as I've said before. So that accounts for most of that increased revenue for this time comparison to last year. And overall, our revenue is up for the year comparison to the prior year, mainly because of higher collected tax revenues, as well as increased funding from the state in the form of restricted state aid. Again, putting us up about $220,000 more than we had projected, mainly because of the advances in that we didn't foresee at the start of the fiscal year as we closed out June, as I've said a number of times. We're projecting about $107.5 million in total revenue this year, based on the end of this month. If we compare last November to this November, our spending is down about $78,000, so it's almost inconsequential. Most of that is because we're spending lower on our supplies and services that we have. And for the year, we're up $10.3 million. Again, most of that's coming from the form of salary and benefits, strictly from a benefits standpoint. Is about $1.2 million of that because of the premium holidays that we had in the last fiscal year that we didn't have this year. So it seems like our benefits have gone up, which they have a little bit, but not to that extent. It's because we're paying for all of the months this year in July and August, where we didn't see that last fiscal year, as well as we had the larger transfer this year to fund our 070 capital improvement plans, which I've said a number of times. All in all, we're trending very close to what we are projecting in our forecast for our expenses. We're actually a little bit less by about $240,000. Again, for all of us in the room, $240,000 is a lot of money, but when you're spending $117 million for the year, $240,000 is less than 1% difference. So, and again, most of that's coming from the fact that we're underspending our purchase services and our other expenses, supplies, and capital improvement funds. Happy to answer any questions. We have finished our 5th month, so when we come back in January, we'll be done with December, so we'll be halfway through our fiscal year, so it'll be a good litmus test for us to where we're at after going through about half the fiscal year. And I would just like to mention that my report was shorter than Mr. Tuttle, who is not here, and Ms. Cook today. So for those in the back who keep record timing of my presentations, I'd like that to go down. Thank you. And I will have an airing of the grievances after the meeting for Festivus. So that being said, Madam President, members of the board, I'd ask that we approve our financial statements, items B, investments, item C, appropriation modifications, and our supplemental appropriations, items D and E, respectively, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Payne.
Yes.
Ms. Jessling.
Yes.
Ms. Cook.
Yes.
Ms. Briner.
Yes.
Motion's carry 4-0. Madam President, members of the board, I ask for the approval of the resolutions to recertify tax rates for the tax year 2022, collection year 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Jessling.
Yes.
Ms. Cook.
Yes.
Ms. Payne.
Yes.
Ms. Briner.
Yes.
Motion's carry 4-0. That concludes my portion of the agenda.
Thank you. Do we have any unfinished business?
I don't know if this would qualify as unfinished business if we're looking at organizing a levy committee in the new year. Do we need to take steps on that kind of moving forward? Do we have something kind of planned so that we can start that perhaps in January?
We've had some initial conversations between Bill and I just to figure out how we want to start the communication with all of this. we're working with Kristen Estes on some of this as well. So we should have some more solid plans here when we come back in January.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any new business? And next, we have hearing of the public on any items. Mr. Wade.
Yes, well, we did have 5 people submit for session 2, so topics not on the agenda. I'm going to call them in no particular order here. I will start with Mr. Russell Miller. So if Mr. Miller is in attendance, if he would go to the microphone in the middle.
Okay.
Not seeing Mr. Miller, so I will go to Lynn Mazika. Is Ms. Mazika here?
Good evening, members of the board, Madam President, Mr. Wade, Mr. Heath. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Today, a remarkable and frightening thing happened. The Ohio State Board of Election chose to ignore the rule of law and pass a hate-filled resolution suggesting that school districts in Ohio defy federal laws prohibiting discrimination against transgender students. I'm relieved that the district in which I live chooses to follow the laws of this country and recognizes the importance and value of providing an inclusive and protective environment to all of Mentor students. And I urge you to continue working to include all students and give them a sense of belonging and safety. Also, I'd like to wish each of you a wonderful holiday season and a peaceful and fruitful new year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. James Cherian. Not seeing Mr. Cherian. Mr. Dennis Stropko. Mr. Dennis Stropko. And our last person who signed up tonight is Miss Ann Anderson.
Hi, everyone. It's like the FBI light with the beam in your face. So, okay, I have 2 children that go to Shore, and I know that you know why I'm here. I have a transgender daughter that's in the school system, and I see that there's not a lot of people here this evening, which is really, it's kind of refreshing to see just that maybe everyone's going to chill out a little bit, and but I can't do that, see, because my daughter's rights are under attack. It's not just my daughter, it's the whole transgender community. What happened at the State Board of Education today was devastating to trans youth. I have something I'd like to read from someone that writes policy that I'm friends with for the Human Rights Campaign for Transgender Youth. Trans kids of all ages deserve to get to see themselves in books and to be allowed to talk about themselves in the classroom. They deserve the basic dignity of having others use their name and pronouns that acknowledge their gender. They should be allowed to use a restroom where they feel safe. They should be able to play sports on teams that align with their gender, so they can bond with friends, learn leadership, sportsmanship, get exercise, and simply have fun. They should be able to access evidence-based medically necessary health care and to make decisions for themselves with the guidance of their parents and their doctors. while I do know that, there's been some protections that have recently come for marriage equality, and I think that's wonderful, what I'm really having a hard time with the trans community just constantly being attacked. And I do appreciate everything that everyone's done to protect trans kids in the Mentor school system, and I do realize that this resolution is not binding, and it's up for the school system to decide whether they would like to adapt these resolutions into their school system. Pretty much, I'm here to beg you. I've begged everyone that I've gone in front of. I really need you to stand up and protect trans kids because nobody else is doing it. No one else is doing it at the State House. It's not happening at the Board of Education. It's not happening in a lot of places all over the country. And I think with the school, I think with what we've seen actually recently in the news with all of the devastating shootings and things that are directed at the LGBTQ community, I think that we all need to take a break with the rhetoric that's aimed at transgender youth, kids, adults, and maybe just, if anybody ever had any questions, I'd be way more than willing to sit down. I'm not angry at anybody. I don't feel like, I just want to help, and that's it. That's all.
Time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We don't have executive session this evening. We'll have a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Jessling.
Yes.
Ms. Cook.
Yes.
Ms. Payne.
Yes.
Ms. Briner.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned at